But my sleeves are up and everything. They should be secured. Like I had that little hank just sticking out there. It's good to get those all kind of put away and rolled up. So what you're going to do to get this is a drill jig I had made for this class. And so what it is, you'll just line up the bottom of this with the dado we just made right here. Okay? So it's where the 3 inches is. And then we'll drill the first hole, and then this little hole here is 5 millimeters. We'll put a shelf pin through that hole into the first hole, and that's how we'll see a line throughout the rest of the drilling. So that's what I'm going to do. We also have to set the drill depth, which is about 3/8 of an inch. So we just come down and touch off. Let's see here, let's just come down here and do it. I have a nondescript area. I just saw the drill move, so it needs to be chucked a little tighter. Yeah, that wasn't in there hardly at all. Well, the best time to chuck something up is before you start drilling. So anyway, we'll get this set here. I'm just going to move this down to here. All right. I can let that balance on the table. Now we'll bring this down until it touches that, and then I know that's about where the bottom is, so I'll put this here. And I want to be about 3/8 of an inch. We'll see where this is at. Let's see, that's right about there. That's about 3/8. So it should measure between this black thing and the bottom of the nut. It should be about 3/8. And I'd say that's real close, real close. And here's the shelf pin. The shelf pins, see this little shoulder here, that little shank? That should be just 3/8 or less. It's actually only about 5/16. So we'll have a little clearance at the bottom, which is just fine. We just don't want to drill all the way through, and obviously 3/4 inch material should be a problem. So that's about where we'll bottom out, is right about there. This is a snappy bit that I'm using right here. Snappy bits, it's like this outside part is like a bushing. It's 3/8 of an inch in diameter, and the holes are just about 3/8 of an inch in diameter. So that's what helps you locate it. But you don't want to rub this bushing around the on top of the plastic. You should just, when you're putting it down, it'll come to the stop obviously with the handle. But what I'm saying is you don't want to just go onto the plastic with the drill, because this was not cheap, this little piece of plastic here, and we don't want to damage it. So one way to do that is using the drill bit. So what we're going to do is we're going to avoid that, and we're just going to use our eyeball and get down close and then finish drilling the hole. So as I said, we're going to drill the first hole, and then we're going to move it up into the smaller hole and put a pin in it, and then let's go on here. So. So I have to hold the guide in place. Now it's just a whole bunch of drilling the holes here. So. Shouldn't have to peck too much with this. We're only going 3/8 of an inch deep. But yeah, that's how we're going to do it, just like that. These wood, you could put these in an impactor and drill it with that as well. I just wanted you guys to make sure to get the holes and then repeat. if you try to drill this way, I'm just going to show you quick here. So you can't get in far enough, the throat isn't deep enough. That's why you have to have this side of the template towards the column of the drill press. That way there's plenty of room. So we'll do the same exact thing. We'll drill the first hole, slide it up, put the shelf pin in, and that'll help us line up the rest of the holes. Okay, and that is one side. Got a garbage can right here, so I'll just dump the chips right into the garbage can as much as possible. Saves a little bit of cleanup. And we'll do it all over again. This side. We're going to flat sand all the big flat surfaces, and we'll come back and do our edges with our new little sanding block that we got. It should work really slick. So anyway, let's go ahead and get her done. Okay, this is a Porter Cable 5-inch random orbit sander. Been using it for a long time. These are actually probably about 15 years old. So what I'm doing is it leaves sometimes some scratches with the grain. You kind of go like that. So the way you look at that is you try to get as much dust off as you can. You look for those scratches. And I don't see much scratches, at least in this light. So I think we're in pretty good shape. So we should be able to make a pass just the way I showed you there. A lot of times you just go back and forth and then go end to end. And it takes off a few thousandths on each side, and usually it removes the majority of the scratches. So I'm going to finish up sanding the rest of the pieces, and then we'll do some Craig drilling, and then we'll be able to hopefully assemble. So there you are. Probably have another 20-25 minutes of sanding. Whenever possible, you want to go ahead and erase on your list of stuff. I asked you to bring along a pink eraser, and that's why, so that you can erase some of the marks that you make on the wood. Okay, this is called a Craig jig. Okay, Craig jigs are like one of the coolest things ever. They've got several different types of Craig jig, but this one here is just for pocket hole screws. It makes a hole similar to this. Okay, and so what it is, you put a screw through this hole. Let's see if I can get my opening here. I'll open this crazy thing up. I think it's supposed to take off one of those little tabs. I'll take it off later. So these are 1-inch ones. They call out for 1.25" from content, but I found for furniture 1-inch ones work really good. And what it does is it goes through that hole like this, You'll drive it into the other piece, and then that screw holds it while the glue is drying. And so you got the glue and the screw holding, which is really a cool fastener. It makes a really strong joint. This is our behind D. Now with this one, we're going to pick the best side to go up. I like this because it's got some color. It's kind of nice. I'm going to make that the top. That means I want to have the drill, or the bottom of it to be towards this part of it right here. This is called a Craig jig, by the way. And this is a step drill mounted in an impactor. You could use a drill also. But we'll go ahead and put that in. Just simply mounts in there, and then this toggle just comes forward and locks it into place. Then we're going to use probably this middle hole, okay? Not the end ones in this application, just the center hole. So we'll do it one at a time here. So we'll make the hole. I'll show you what it looks like. Looks like a little oval hole here, and then it just barely drills through the bottom. So anyway, that's what we're going to do on that end. So on this end, we'll mount it such that it comes to the edge like that. See how it lines up flush there? So about flush. We'll toggle it. We'll hold it in position. Actually, it moved a little bit. I'll put it back. Put just a little bit more pressure on there. That's better. All right, pretty good now. So say you were to run into a crack or something, and you notice that was going to run into the crack in the side or a knot or something, we just move this over a little bit, drill another hole. It ain't going to hurt as long as it's on the bottom. We also have to put it behind, this is letter D, and it's got to go like this, see? So we got to have these same pocket hole screws in the front, okay, or on the bottom here, so they can screw into that front. So in this application, we're going to move those screws. We're only using 2, but we're going to just move them over a little bit further. So we're going to, let's just measure over. So come to the edge, and I want it to be centered about at the 3. So we'll use the 3-hole pattern. You use the one the farther in. We'll lock it in and drill the hole. Same thing on this end. See, it's much further over now. How far over was that again? Oh, that's 3. I'll come over 3 inches to that. Pretty close. Drill the hole. And then on the other end, so we'll have 2 more down here. Same as before. I'm going to go to the center hole on this one. Want to keep the debris out from underneath here, so it sits nice and clean on the bottom. Okay, so go to the center hole. So I'm flushing it up. Center hole. Okay, so that one is drilled. Okay, now we need this one, but again, remember that we're going to go like this. Okay, those holes there. But see this piece of 3/4 inch wood there? So we want to get 2 screws in that little 2 1/4 inch area. Now we can use the pattern that's already on here again. We're going to come, let's see here, I'm going to make sure we have plenty of clearance, otherwise it's hard to drill. So we'll make sure that the first hole, I'm just checking something quick here. The center hole is not really in the center. Alright, I'm just trying to come up with an easy way for you guys to gauge this. Okay, we're always going to use these two holes on left and then the center hole. Okay, this one and this one, left and center. And what that's going to do is give us uniformity. So when we flip it over, it's not going to look the same, but we're going to measure over here, and that's 1 and about 3/4. We're going to end up having to use a long driver on that, which, again, there ain't no problem. So remember I said 1 3/4? So now we're going to go, that was to the center hole last time, now we're going to come to this hole, to this edge. 1 3/4. Actually pretty close to that right there. Got lucky. Lord knows that doesn't happen every day. Actually, that doesn't look right. Verify it. I'm just going to move that over just a skosh. That's pretty close. Maybe it's just my imagination. I'm going to move it over a little bit more. What it is, I've tried to put things in. If you get it too close to the edge or to the bottom of that other piece of wood, it's going to be really hard to drive those screws. That's what I'm trying to avoid here. I'd rather almost have it a little closer to the bottom than have that problem. So I'm just going to end up pretty close to 1 3/4. Actually, it's at 1 1/2. Oh, this one's at 1 1/2. So I just measured off. That's why it didn't look right. It's supposed to be 1 1/2, not 1 3/4. See how they're both towards the bottom now? That should give us more than enough room to screw on letter D. All right, and these are the parts that go up underneath the cabinet. So you'll see the front edge of one of these, and the other one is in the back like this. Now you've got saw kerfs on one edge. As long as you put the one in the front, so the saw kerfs are towards the back, and if you put the smooth side in the front, like this, there's no saw kerf marks. There's no sanding to do. Remember, I don't like to sand. So less sanding to do on the front piece, and the back side you won't sand at all. So we just got to get it in the center of this piece of wood. So because it's such a thin piece of wood, you know, thin this way, and we want to pick the right side, so that looks pretty good. We're going to center it right on letter B. Okay, there's A, B, and C on there. So we're going to use letter B, like so. And let's see here. The other thing you should do is always look at your wood for bowing, and you'd want to have the bow up. And just so happens I would have had it the wrong way. This has got a slight bow like that, and I want the bow to be into the top. So you want to put the screw on the bow upside. And this piece of wood is a real nice piece of wood, so that you won't have no problem with that. So now it's locked in, I can drill that. Okay, eyeball it, slight bow up. So we'll put that in there on letter B. Sawdust, a little sticky. I have got a slight allergy to basswood. So, keeping that in mind, dust can make me a little bit more allergic than normal. Okay, all our pieces are drilled, and I think we're set to start doing some assembly. Yahoo! It's the fun part. I think so. So now what we're going to do is we're going to assemble this to this. Right, now, up on the board, you probably didn't notice, but this, well, I told you, but this is gonna be longer than this piece here. And so what that means is we actually gotta build one other piece for it. We gotta build a plug over there and put it in place, because otherwise we're gonna have a gap in the front. So we'll have to build a small plug over on the bandsaw, and then we'll be able to keep moving forward. So let me just find a piece of scrap material and we'll make our plugs, and then we'll come back over and take care of the plugs. So what we're going to do, I can't get close enough with the fence to actually cut the stock. And remember, I always say you have to figure out a way so that you can get this to the right height so you can't hurt yourself. What I built is I built this little gadget here. And what I'll do is I'll actually clamp this both ends with a small clamp, and then I'll be able to safely bring this down to an 1/8 inch above the stock I'm cutting. So which is right about here. And I will grab a couple of little clamps. Just bear with me here as I grab some clamps. I like these little squeeze ones the best. It's not got the yellow freebie things on it. All right, I got some clamps. So I'll put the clamps on to hold that in place. Yep. Oh, that's interesting. That's pretty good. It's got this little recess back here, and I gotta. There we go. I'm gonna actually move this. No, I can't, I guess, on that one, so that's fine. All right. See, no, that'll work out just fine. Now I gotta set the saw accordingly. I'm hitting on something. Oh, right there. There's a little screw back here, so I just gotta slide this little safety gadget over a little bit so it misses it. That just looks ever so uncomfortable. Much better. All right, so I'm going to set that so it's about a 1/16 away. Then I'll have to make a cut and verify it. Just a little thicker. That should be pretty good. It has to be real long, unless we're going to do a bunch of them, but I don't think we're going to make too many. So I'll just slide this back. It needs to be about 1/2 to 5/8 each. There's one plug. I'll slide it over another 1/2 to 5/8. There's two. Shut her off. Wait for it to shut off. Okay, it's shut off. Now we'll grab our plugs. It's okay that they're not perfect. We're just going to sand them off and get them so that it's going to be flush anyway. So, pardon me. So that's all we need to do at this point. We'll just go over and put them in with a little bit of glue, and it'll work out perfectly. Okay, we're going to install the plugs on our letter A's. So this is all it is, just this little tiny piece of wood here, and just put a little dot of glue. Kind of spread it out so that this will adhere across that whole surface, and just put it in there. You want to make sure that you're cutting some of it off. There we go. So that looks pretty good on that one. And we'll just do the other one quick, the same exact thing. Plugs are a marvelous thing for when you're trying to get some cuts made and stuff. It just makes everything a little bit prettier. That way you don't have gaps where they're not supposed to be. So again, you want to spread it across the whole surface. And then the more glue surface you got on the plug, the less likely it'll ever fall out, which is exactly what you want. You don't ever want that to fall out. I'll squirt out a little glue, just take it off with your finger. And then I'll just take my little sanding block I made, make sure it's flush. It looks pretty good. The same thing with the other one. And then we left it stick out a little bit here too, so it's over flush. Just want to make sure you keep it nice and flat, because the sanding paper cuts really fast. So, there we go, nice and flush. Same thing on this one. It's flush, just like that. Looks great. All right, now we can put Humpty Dumpty together. All right, let's see here. Gotta get our backs to backs. That looks good. Put the cap back on here. I'm actually going across a couple of these tables, if you notice. And what you'll end up doing is probably just working on a single table. But anyway, let's go ahead and get this installed. First of all, probably we should get this done. We'll put this front on. So we're going to assemble this letter D to behind D. Right now I'll get that done. I might need a clamp. If I do, I'll just go grab it here. But what it is, you should have about a 1/16 gap over flush on even. So this is over flush of this. So 6 out of 16, and that'll go into these grooves. So we should be able to measure that and get a pretty good idea of where a 1/16 is. That looks pretty good right there. So we'll just get some glue on that surface, we'll reorient it, and I think we'll be set. I'm just going to make a little hash mark, and I think it's pretty close to where it should be. That's my mark. If I know when that lines up, it'll be fine. So I'm going to do that. And for some of you, it might be a good idea for us to see how big that glue bead is. Just a tiny little glue bead. Don't need a ton. In the old days, I used to run a lot of glue, and it'd be dripping all over. What I learned as I got older is glue control is essential to not doing as much work. Right? I want to get the job done. I just don't want to have to remove a lot of glue and do a lot of sanding, because those are the jobs I don't enjoy doing very much. So my two little hash marks are lined up just nice. Now I'll try putting it together without a clamp. If it works, great. If it doesn't, I'll just grab a clamp and do it quick. Screws like this will sometimes pull it off a little bit out of flush. So I'll start. I wish you could see it. This is under flush of this by about 10 thousandths, which isn't much. We're just going to see it moved a long ways. There, that's perfectly flush now, so if I don't over tighten it, it should be fine now. So on this end, I kind of went to school on the other one. I'm going to bring it a little bit more. I'm going to bring it out to maybe 20 or 30 thousandths. Come on, move just a little bit. There we go. Okay, that's about twice as much as what I had it before. There, that looks really good. That one moved a little bit again. Boy, the basswood, it loves to stick, and it sticks quick. Alright, maybe a little son of a gun, you. There. It's trying to strip on me, so I'm not going to mess with it anymore. Alright, now we're going to assemble this to this in those slots. fine. This will go right in here. Just dry fitting it to make sure everything's going to fit right. It looks like it's going to go just good. So put a little wood in the slot, or a little wood glue in the slot here. Just a little bit on the end. Like so. We'll need 4 screws. And we'll go ahead, put that together. Hopefully without having to fall out of your hands. You'll want to be real gentle with these screws because we don't want them to pull out on us. Come on, baby. In fact, the drill might be a better option for you guys because you don't do these all the time. These impactors are so powerful, they'll strip them if you're not careful. So, just using a little bit of trigger here, and I just feel it tighten up, so I let off. Do the same thing on this one right now. Okay, just touched. And that joint looks fabulous. Looks really good. So now I'm going to set it down. Actually, let's go ahead and spread some glue on it before I do that. As much dust off as I can. Dust and debris can influence the way the joint holds, so you always want to keep the dust out of the joint as much as possible. So I'm putting just, I'd say it's probably a 16th bead of glue on these surfaces, and they seem to be liking that pretty good. They're not going over the side. Do you have the angle on this?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah? Okay. I'm going to put this together. Make sure that's flush right here. That is a nice snug joint. I'm liking it very much. Alright, so now I'm going to go ahead and put this together. Unless I have to get a clamp. This might be one of those things where I just got to use a clamp. And yeah, this one right across here. You can put a little weight on that, go ahead. There, that's great. Okay, we're looking for it to be nice and flush, and it is right here. Plenty good enough, that's for sure. So we'll just put the screw in here gently, like I said before. Don't overpower it. Just till you feel it snug up. This one is out a little bit on the bottom there. I got to snap back in. I'm just going to keep it easy. That's good. Now we've got the screws underneath here that we need to do in the front of the toe kit. Oh, there we go. All right. So now I'm going to put them. 4 screws in here. Now again, this is flush right to the front. You can feel it there, so we're in good shape. One, two. The goal is always to just get it so it's nicely flush. and get it flush, that's 90% of the job. So now, just put a little pressure on the outside just to push it in just a little bit. Knowing that the screws are going to pull a little bit. There, that's good. Basswood is very soft. So if you over tighten these screws, they'll strip. And that's what you do not want to strip a screw. That's awesome right there. That's really good. Okay, that's good. So now we got all our screws and everything looks really tight and pretty. Now we'll do the ones on top. I'll just put this right here and slide it up. See how gentle you need to be with the wood? It's so soft that if you bang it around, you can dance all over it. So you just got to be real gentle with it. Okay, I'll grab our two, I think, what are they called? Those are letter C's. They're already drilled. I remember earlier I said that we want to try to keep the side out that's sanded and you can't see any of the kerf marks. You can barely see them on this side, but you sure can feel them. And so I'm going to put that side out like so. I'll probably use the clamp, just hold that together while I'm assembling this to make sure that it stays put for me. So it's already adjusted. All I have to do is put it together. Just get a little glue on there. I'll show you, usually around the mark right here, this is kind of important. You make a little smiley face, see that? Right around the screw hole. Make sure the dust is off. A little smiley face, okay? We're doing an Amazon mark right on our wood. I think they have a thing that's a smiley face. Alright, there's that. And then there's this one. We'll clamp it. That's all nice and flush. That's flush. No burr there, but ain't nothing. A little bit over flush. You can see the shadow right here. So, I can try moving that in just a dab. There, now it's perfect. It's just got a little bit. See, that ain't worth messing with. I'm just going to grab 3-4 screws here and get that put in. Yeah, there's that. Okay. You can hear the drill. As long as you're finessing it, you can always hear it. Okay, we're going to do the same thing on the bottom, keeping in mind that we have these little rabbets in the bottom, and so we want to pay attention to that. So I might set it up for that. I'm just going to set it down on the floor here. You'd be able to see it better that way too. All that dust down there. Yeah, that looks nice. All right, and then we do the same thing. Sporticle just like this. Now if we were to put it like that, it would work, but you could actually have books banging into it every now and then, so I'd prefer that we put it like this, and we're going to be less likely to bang a book into it and have problems. So kind of a little method behind my madness there. So a little smiley face again, just like that. A little smiley face, like so. We'll put a clamp on. They say clamps are like having an extra set of hands, and I'd like to tell you I believe that. So we're going to clamp together here. Nice and flush. See what I'm able to do? The clamp is doing most of the holding while I'm just final fitting it here. Clamps are a wonderful thing. Alright, they are there. I'm going to grab a couple of screws. Oh, got two right here. I remember grabbing some. Alright, hold it in, or drive the screws. That's good. Glue does the majority of the holding on these. The screws help a ton, but because again it's basswood, we could almost use a coarse threaded screw on this, but now I suppose we'll run some maple and then we'll wish we had these fine threads again. Alright, so typically what I do at this point is I would put my back on. So we need to cut the back on the saw, and then we will assemble that, and I'll put some holes in here, and then I'll just show you. We won't put the top on permanently because it's easier to stain it without the top on. Then after we get everything stained up, we just put it on there, we screw the top on, we're done. So it'll be a very simple thing to do after that. But we'll go ahead and build the back, and then we'll be right back and show you doing the top. We got to route the top, but other than that, we're done. So now I'm going to just cut this 1/4 inch back. It's going to have to run. Remember, I said I'd prefer to have the grain running vertically, but in this case, I didn't have a piece of this stock around my shop, except for this one, and this 1/4 inch pine, so it'll work fine. Oh, got a little rhyme. All right, we're going to go ahead and do some cutting here. So what I did there was, this was 48 inches wide. So what I did was I marked 45 inches, added an eighth, and then I took it, made a mark. I measured back to that mark, because the kerf mark is 1/8, and so it actually was dead on at 48. So I subtracted 2 7/8 to get my 45 with the kerf mark, and it gave me exactly what I wanted. In this case, it doesn't always work out that nice, but this piece of stock is now ready to, after I sand it, it'll be ready to assemble to the back of the cabinet. Alright, we're going to do a porter cable hand router setup today. We're going to actually route at the top of our top for the bookshelf. Right now we have a 1/2 inch collet in here, and that collet will fit the 1/4 inch round over. So we'll just take that out. And nice thing about these hand routers, these are much newer routers. And they've got several really nice features on them. I just might end up having to get some new routers at my shop because I like these so much. But you only need 1 wrench instead of 2 because it's got this little button on the side. It's right here. See that little red? And this button pushes in and out. And that button actually, you turn this spindle until it locks in. And that was actually pretty easy over there. So anyway, it locks in. and I actually got to have a little bit more room to get at that. So the other thing it does is you can unlock this thing right here that unlocks, and then there's a switch here that allows you to just slide it up and down. And for fine tuning, you turn this up and down. You can see it going up here. So that's just an awesome feature. I really like this router. So we just bring that up until it's pretty close, and then I can turn it. Can you? Oh, maybe you can. Oh, I gotta lock it in first. Anyway, now that got it up too high now, I'll just bring it back down a little bit. I can get at my button. Gotta push this. There we go. Alright. So now we're gonna tighten our collet. Go like so. Pushing our button. And then tighten our collet. Should hand tighten that as much as we can first. There we go. There we go. That's everybody tight enough. Now I'm going to bring this up by hand, just get it close, and then I'm going to making this look a lot harder than it is. Alright, that looks pretty good. I'll have this open and kind of adjust. There we go. Right about there. Okay, it's locked in. As soon as you lock this lever, then that doesn't allow this to move anymore. And you can't adjust this either the way it looks. So that's kind of cool. Okay, and now I'll router my top, which is right there. So I'll be back with you in just a second here as I move around and get everything plugged in. It's a 1/4 inch round over, and I've got a big notch knocked out here when I was jointing this piece of wood. That's something I probably should have paid attention to when I was doing my marks originally, because that's a big hunk there. I should have cut that out. So this is going to be our front now, okay? So we don't have to worry about that. And I kind of like that big knot anyway. The other thing to check for is to make sure that you got clearance between the bottom of the router tip right here at the bottom of the router bit and the table. We got plenty of clearance. I'd say it's about a 1/4 inch, and we only want to cut these 3 corners, not the back. Okay, that's pretty important. So you can actually mark them just lightly with a little X. On the sides you want to cut. You can do that on the other side too if you want. But I pretty much know where I want to cut. So let's go ahead and start. It's this little red button. So you set it down on the stock. You have it securely holding with one hand, then you bring this up. This is also a little handy little switch here. See, lifting it up, and then it becomes a safety switch. As soon as it pops up, you can just hit your whole hand on top of that safety switch. It's also got a variable speed, so we want it at the fastest it'll go for this little router bit. And if you were swinging a bigger bit, that would maybe fill up that whole hole right here. You'd want to have it at a much slower speed. And again, they're making these things so nice anymore. They hold the speed really good. You'll hear it slow down as you start to cut, then it automatically starts adding more torque. So it'll keep spinning and cutting. So really nice. And it did a real nice job routing this off. So see, it's nicely rounded here, and so it should work out real good for our top. So that's all until we put the back on. So we'll sand it all up here, and the back, that is. And that'll be the next thing we take.